when I think about the way that my understanding of our history as Zimbabweans has evolved over time, and how it has changed as I've become more self-aware and as I've become more spiritually inclined, and just having that knowledge of myself as a person, my understanding of these figures, these icons like Nehanda or other later so-called liberation war heroes has changed over time. But Nehanda has had such a powerful impression, just how dynamic this figure has been, as far as my own understanding of that particular figure. Yeah, it's been quite a journey, coming to that understanding. And of late, I've begun to see her as having two sides. In fact, I'll go as far as saying that there are two Nehandas, actually. And I know most people would rather say, well, actually, it's just one spirit that came out in two different personalities and so on. But I'll just shove that on the side and say, no, there's actually two Nehandas. It's two sides of the same coin. It's like a figure with a light side and a dark side. And I was thinking about Nehanda Nyamhita, the daughter of the first Mutapa, at least as far as history has been able to, to look into it and follow the story through the oral traditions that existed. Somebody came up with the story of Nehanda Nyamhita and how her father caused her to commit incest with her brother in order for the kingdom to become powerful. And I was thinking, this particular Nehanda, and I know a lot of feminists out there, they jump on this particular story and they say, oh, look what they done to this woman and things like that, which I understand. I can see where they're coming from. So there's that Nehanda who's forced to commit incest. And I say to myself, wow, that must have been quite traumatizing for her to have to be sacrificed like that and to be made to do something that she may have been against, that may have caused her tremendous emotional and psychological, mental and spiritual anguish to have to go through something like that, even though we are told that she became powerful as a result of that incest that she committed, right? So I think of her as some type of split personality, in the sense that you don't get to go through such an experience and emerge from that experience as the same person. Obviously, something's going to change. You are going to be a conflicted individual, which then makes me think that actually this is supposed to be our origin story as Zimbabweans. We are supposed to be the products of an incestuous relationship. And I know others will then come in and say, well, look, it's all symbolic. It's not like it actually happened. You see, there's that argument. But the story is told as if it happened. So on a mental level, whatever happened can be described as such a thing as incest. So incest did happen on some level, we are told. So we have very troubled or very troublesome origins as a people. We are products of pain. We come from pain. We come from a place of, one could say, shame, right? That's where we're coming from. Even before the nation even exists, there is that origin that is somewhat shameful because it comes from incest. We are told by the stories, right? Then we have the second Nehanda Charwe. I mean, she was accommodating of the white settlers at the beginning. And then she realized, oh no, these people are devilish. We got to get them out of here. And then she rebelled against them. And guess what they did? They took this woman and they hung her to sort of make an example, to scare the people, because the people looked up to her for spiritual nourishment. They looked up to her as a spiritual leader, as a rainmaker, a rain bringer. And this is what the white man did to her. And she said, before she died, they say she said, my bones will rise. So there's a feeling of a vengeful spirit. Somebody that's coming out one day, guns blazing, and who's going to bring about that vengeance that the people need to see. So those are the two Nehandas. The one is probably more motherly in the sense that she's supposed to be the mother of the nation, right? But the other one, she's all about vengeance, man. She's not playing. She's actually like a spirit that's been hovering in the consciousness of the people, like, yo, man, I'm coming back. I'm going to come back. And I know I've interpreted this whole idea in so many other ways, because there's just so many ways that one can come to an understanding of who and what Nehanda really is, right? So I've been thinking about this iconic figure. And in this case, I'd say these iconic figures, these two sides of Nehanda. And I've been thinking about how her spirit, or these two sides of her, have been employed within the political system in this country. Now let's think about whether the two factions at war within the ruling party in this country, whether that's an actual thing that's happening or whether it's something that is concocted by the powers that be to split the people and to make them think or have a messed up view of what their actual reality is. Whether that is what's really going on or whether these factions are actually real is besides the point. I have found that these factions, quote unquote, are actually employing the two different sides, or the two Nehandas. The one faction is invoking the more motherly, the more, look, let's get this nation together. Our people must be as one within this kingdom. So this is that mother who was made to commit incest with her brother, and then who had this whole empire become stronger, more united. And by the way, I say this, only as a matter of how these particular elites are looking at it. It's not necessarily the reality, and their heart is not necessarily in that place. But this is the Nehanda that they are employing, the one who is a mother of the nation. You could think of that Nehanda as the light, not the dark Nehanda. The one who said, my bones will rise. The one whose spirit was employed back in 1966, the second Chimurenga. That's the vengeful Nehanda. That's the Nehanda that says, look, my people have suffered for long enough, and I'm coming out here and I'm going to fuck shit up, right? That's the second Nehanda. And this Nehanda is being employed by the other faction that is against the ideas that lean toward the setting up of a kingdom, using democracy only as a front, right? So that's more of a kingdom, right? So the one Nehanda who says my bones will rise is being employed by the faction that's saying, hey, look, man, enough is enough. We're sick and tired of A, B, C, D, E. We don't want the status quo no more. We don't like the direction in which the nation is moving. So those are the two Nehandas. And I really want you to think about that and begin to see these Nehandas not as persons that lived outside of you, but as actual parts of yourself, as projections of yourself, that fracturing within yourself as an individual, that double-mindedness, that light and that dark within yourself, that people like Carl Jung would come and say, hey, look, you need to integrate your shadow. So all of what you are seeing playing out within the political space really is projections of your own mentality, how you've been carrying yourself out as a person, which then spreads out into a nationwide situation of a people who are trying to find peace within themselves and amongst themselves. Everything that's playing out, that's just a projection. But the reality is within the mind. The reality is spiritual. All of these issues that you see outside is really about you. How you perceive yourself, how you think of yourself on a spiritual level, who you are spiritually. That's what's going to determine what your reality looks like moving forward, regardless of what appears to be happening on the outside. Look inward, not outward, because what's going on out there, that's always going to be there. Right? That's happening already. It's what's going inside that once you could change that, once you can heal those iconic figures and all their pain are healed. But it's really about you. When you heal, you're not easy to take advantage of, because you're not going to sit there and allow anyone to ever treat you less than you deserve, whether it's a politician, whether it's someone who has a duty of care over you, whether it's the system, whether it's whoever, that as an individual, that as a people, you will never ever allow people to treat you a certain way, because you know who you are. You're not out there walking around broken so that people could just treat you any kind of way. You are solid as an individual, and you become solid as a people. So I think of what's going on as a clash between the Nehandas. But this clash is only necessary for the healing process, the healing of the nation, the healing of the people. But the people must have an understanding. They must become grounded in an understanding of themselves that is capable of bringing about true healing. Yeah, that's something that's been on my mind for quite a while. We have to now get out of that trauma loop, that idea that somebody is coming to save us. We have to now separate myth and reality, right? You have to begin to think whether what we look at as Nehanda's power comes from her actual divinity, or is this a collective energy of millions of people who project their hopes and fears onto her? So I believe that as we move toward the healing, if it's ever going to come, we have to stop looking at Nehanda as a static statue of the past and start looking at her as the living mirror of our own internal divisions. We have become a divided people. That's just something for us all to ponder on, to think about, All right. Until next time. Peace.